Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that might shake you, break you, but if you let it, it will wake you. We live in a world where only 2% rise, where 2% of people build, believe, and become while the rest settle for what they were never called to accept. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to confront the lie that you can just show up, do the bare minimum, and expect maximum harvest. No, 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 the 2% succeed not because they are better, but because they refuse to quit, refuse to shrink, and refuse to make excuses. The 98%, they live in the land of almost, almost started, almost changed, almost finished, but almost doesn't move mountains, almost doesn't leave legacy. You see, the truth that many run from, the reality that most avoid, is that nothing significant has ever been birthed in ease. Comfort never called greatness out of a man or a woman. Comfort never stretched potential. Comfort never dug deep and pulled purpose out of pain. The 2% who rise above, who break generational curses, who climb out of pits and stand on platforms, are not the ones who avoided the fire, they are the ones who stood in it and refused to back down. They were not immune to suffering, they were introduced to it, and they made it their teacher. You cannot be transformed where you are comfortable. You cannot build strength lifting what is easy. You cannot develop spiritual and mental muscle by sitting still and praying for convenience. The crushing places, the pressing places, those are the places where the oil is made. That is where vision becomes clear and calling becomes undeniable. Most people will flee when life gets hard. They will retreat when things don't go as planned, but the few, the rare, they lean in. The ones who succeed, they have this inner knowing that pain is part of the process. They understand that diamonds are made in pressure, that wine is made in the crushing, and that wheat is separated from chaff by violent shaking. So they stop complaining and start enduring. They stop begging for the storm to pass and start learning how to stand in the rain with authority, with power, with determination. Because the discomfort they face isn't there to destroy them, it's there to distill them. See, most people confuse peace with ease. They think that if the road is rough, it must not be right. But peace isn't the absence of trouble, it's the presence of purpose in the middle of trouble. The ones who rise are the ones who realize that. They are not waiting for a soft landing, they are ready for a hard climb. They're not looking for guarantees, they are ready for growth. They don't say, "I'll go if it's easy." They say, "I'll go even if it's hard, even if it's lonely, even if it breaks me, because I know what's on the other side is greater than what I'm leaving behind." The 2% don't pray to be excused from pain, they pray for strength to endure it. They're not asking God to take away the challenge, they're asking for vision to see what the challenge is building. They understand that anything worth carrying will stretch you, destiny will cost you. And if it doesn't hurt a little, if it doesn't make you question yourself some days, if it doesn't push you to your knees, it's probably not big enough. So they welcome discomfort as a sign that they're headed in the right direction. It's not that they don't cry. It's not that they don't question. It's not that they don't have nights where their faith wavers and their heart feels broken. But they press on anyway, because somewhere deep inside, they know that the valley is part of the vision. They know that discomfort is not denial. It is the ground where new life takes root, and while others are begging for the mountain to move, they are learning how to climb. Discomfort is not a punishment, it is a purifier. It burns off pride, shakes off laziness, exposes excuses, and demands a deeper version of you. The easy road won't teach you who you are. The comfort zone won't show you what you're made of. Only in the heat, only under pressure, do you discover the depth of your own soul. The ones who make it to the top, they don't always look like the strongest at first, but they're consistent. They get knocked down and they get back up. They face rejection and they still show up. They lose, they weep, they bleed, but they do not quit. And that's what makes them different. Not talent, not connections, not money. It's grit. It's endurance. It's the ability to stay in the fire until the fire makes you new. They don't romanticize struggle, but they don't run from it either. They understand that destiny has a price tag, and that price is often paid in silence, in seasons of isolation, in moments where you're misunderstood, overlooked, even betrayed. But even in those moments, they don't let bitterness take root. They don't let weariness steal the dream. They let discomfort deepen them, not define them. There's something about discomfort that reveals who's really hungry. Anybody can dream in the light, but can you still believe when it's dark? Anybody can plan in the spring, but can you still plant seeds in the drought? The 2% have learned that discomfort is part of divine development. It doesn't always feel good, but it always does good. It cuts away what is shallow. It strips off what is false. It removes the layers you never needed in the first place. When others are paralyzed by fear, they are propelled by faith. Not because they feel brave, but because they've learned that fear is a liar and discomfort is a prophet. It's telling them that transformation is near, so they walk through it. They don't camp in pity. They don't drown in self-doubt. They shake off the dust and move forward even if they have to limp, even if they have to crawl, even if they have to do it alone, because they have discovered that discomfort doesn't last, but what is built in it does. Character lasts, wisdom lasts, power lasts, purpose lasts, and when you come out on the other side, you don't come out empty, you come out equipped. What the world sees as resistance, the 2% see as training. Every hard thing they face is another opportunity to grow. Every closed door is a redirection. Every betrayal is a shedding of dead weight. They are not thrown off by pain, they are refined by it. So when life starts shaking, they don't break, they bend, they pivot, they adjust, they stretch, and like a tree rooted deep, they might sway, but they will not fall. They have been conditioned by the discomfort, not crushed by it. They do not just survive the fire, they learn to dance in it. They praise in it, they lead in it, they give in it, they love in it, because they understand that pain and purpose often live in the same house. You cannot divorce one and expect to marry the other. The 2% are not superhuman, they simply made a choice to let discomfort shape them instead of stop them. While others looked for exits, they looked for answers. While others built excuses, they built endurance. While others cried, "Why me?" they declared, "Why not me?" And when it was all said and done, when the ashes settled, when the rain stopped and the sun came back out, they were still standing. Stronger, wiser, humbled, hungry, ready for the next mountain, because they knew all along this wasn't punishment, this was preparation. There comes a moment in every person's life when the instructions are not clear, when the path ahead is foggy, when nothing makes sense, yet something inside still says go. That moment right there is where separation happens. That's where the 98% pull back, pause, overanalyze, and talk themselves out of what God put in them. But the 2%, the rare ones, the ones you hear about, they go, they move, they step out, they commit before they understand. It's not that they have more information. It's not that they have a clear picture. It's not that they've got it all figured out. They just have a deep knowing that waiting for certainty will kill their calling. See, the problem is we've been trained to believe we need clarity to move, but clarity is not a prerequisite for faith. Obedience is. The ones who rise, the ones who build the business, write the book, raise the child, launch the vision, they do it without all the answers. They don't wait for a perfect plan. They just step when the Spirit says step. God rarely hands out blueprints. He gives burdens, he gives whispers, he gives nudges. And those who are waiting for him to explain everything before they move are often still stuck in the same place, year after year, blaming life, blaming people, blaming time. But the ones who break out, the ones who break through, they understand something the others don't, that the blessing is in the moving, not in the knowing. The understanding comes after the obedience. The miracle comes after the motion. You've got to go before you know. Look at every story of transformation, every testimony of breakthrough, and you'll find someone who stepped out when it didn't make sense. They signed up for the class they couldn't afford. They walked into the interview they didn't feel qualified for. They applied for the opportunity that was way above their head. Why? Because something inside of them said, even if I don't know how this ends, I know I'm supposed to begin. That kind of boldness doesn't come from logic. It doesn't come from spreadsheets or safety nets. It comes from conviction. It comes from knowing that staying where you are will cost you more than stepping into the unknown. Because while everyone else is waiting for a sign, the 2% understand that being alive is the sign, being called is the sign, breathing is the sign, that dream in your gut, that fire in your bones, that ache in your soul. That is the sign. See, there's a difference between those who watch and those who walk. The watchers want confirmation. The walkers move on command. The watchers are paralyzed by perfection. The walkers understand that progress is messy, imperfect, unfinished. They don't need the whole staircase, they'll take the next step. They don't need to see the end of the road, they trust that God will meet them in the middle. That's the kind of commitment the 2% carry. They understand that faith is not proven in what you say, it's proven in what you do when you don't understand. Sometimes all you get is a whisper, just one word: start, go, build, leave, stay, forgive. Give, serve, and that word won't always make sense. It won't come with a 5-year plan. It won't come with applause. It won't come with comfort. But that word will test your trust, and that trust is what separates those who dream about destiny and those who step into it. Think about it. Noah didn't understand rain, but he built. Abraham didn't understand the journey, but he walked. Mary didn't understand how, but she said, "Be it unto me." Peter didn't understand the storm, but he stepped out of the boat. Over and over again, the people who changed history didn't wait for clarity. They moved with conviction, and that movement, that obedience, opened the heavens and made room for miracles. Most people want guarantees. They want to know it will work before they try. They want applause before they act. But God doesn't always give you the evidence. Sometimes He just gives you the word, and the question is, will you trust Him enough to commit even when it doesn't make sense? The 2% understand that waiting for perfect understanding is often just fear in disguise. Perfectionism is often procrastination wearing a mask. If you wait until you're ready, you'll never start. If you wait until it's easy, you'll miss the window. There are some doors that only open to people who knock without knowing what's behind them. Some breakthroughs are reserved for people who walk by faith, not by sight. That's the kind of commitment that moves mountains. You don't need the map. You need the momentum. You don't need every detail. You need determination. You don't need to understand the how. You need to trust the who. Because when you commit without understanding, you're not trusting the plan, you're trusting the one who made it. And let me tell you something about commitment. It unlocks clarity. The moment you say yes, the moment you stop hesitating, the moment you stop wavering and start walking, something shifts. New doors open. People show up, provision arrives, the fog begins to lift, not all at once, but enough to take the next step, and the next, and the next. And before you know it, you're standing in a place you couldn't even imagine when you first began. That's what separates the 2%. They're not smarter, they're not luckier, they're not more connected. They're just more committed, and not because it all makes sense, but because they refuse to let what they don't know keep them from what they do know. And what they do know is this: purpose won't wait. Destiny won't knock forever. The time is now, the door is open, and hesitation is the enemy of harvest. So let me ask you, what have you been sitting on? What dream have you delayed? What vision have you buried because you didn't understand the how? What promise have you put on pause because the pieces didn't fit? You don't have to understand everything to commit to something. You don't have to know the end to begin. The most powerful decision you can make is to move even when it's messy, even when it's risky, even when it's unclear. Because obedience is not about understanding. It's about trust, and trust doesn't wait for perfect information. It responds to divine instruction. That's what the 2% have learned. That's what sets them apart. They say yes when others are still saying maybe. They jump while others are calculating. They build while others are still brainstorming. And because of that, they go places others only talk about. They see what others only dream of. They live what others only imagine. Not because they had it all figured out, but because they committed before they understood. There's a war that happens before the world ever sees your win. A war not fought with swords, not fought with people, not even fought with circumstances, but fought in silence, deep beneath the surface, where nobody's watching and nobody's cheering. This is the war within. The unseen battle, the struggle that rages in the soul, in the thoughts, in the heart. And let me tell you something that many don't understand. The people who rise, the ones who break records and break curses, the 2% who walk into rooms others were afraid to knock on, they fight that battle first. Before the applause, before the breakthrough, before the platform, they conquer themselves. The reason most people don't make it is not because they weren't talented. It's not because they didn't have an opportunity. It's because they were trying to win in public while losing in private. They were trying to take territory without first defending their own mind. They were trying to fight giants without first silencing the little voice that told them they were unworthy, unqualified, uncalled. But those who truly rise, they understand that the real fight is not out there, the real fight is in here, in the thoughts, in the patterns, in the pain, in the memory of what they've survived and the fear of what might come next. The strongest people you'll ever meet don't look like warriors, they look like survivors. They walk into the room quietly, but they carry a presence that comes from walking through their own shadows and refusing to be afraid of them. They have fought nights of doubt. They've wrestled with insecurities that screamed louder than any crowd. They've stood in front of the mirror and had to choose whether to believe the voice of God or the voice of fear. And every time they chose faith, they gained ground, not on the outside but on the inside. The ones who make it, they don't pretend they don't feel fear. They just don't let fear lead. They've learned how to confront that trembling thing inside them and say, "You don't get to make decisions here." They know the voice of shame. They know the sound of unworthiness. They've heard that inner critic say, "You'll never be enough. You're not ready. You'll fail like you always do." But instead of bowing to it, they've learned how to speak back with truth, with power, with the authority of someone who's tired of being a prisoner to their past. They know the cost of avoidance. They know that if they don't face it now, it will follow them later. So they sit in it, they cry in it, they pray through it, they ask hard questions, they peel back layers, they go to the root, and while everyone else is dressing up the surface, they're doing surgery in the soul. Because they've learned that you cannot fake freedom, you can't build something that lasts on a shaky foundation, you can't carry vision if you're still carrying the voice of every person who broke you, rejected you, underestimated you. You have to deal with it, you have to fight that fight. You can't conquer a platform if you haven't conquered your pride. You can't handle promotion if you haven't handled insecurity. What good is success if the soul is still sick? What good is winning out there if you're losing sleep at night, losing peace, losing yourself? The 2% know that discipline isn't just about routines, it's about warfare. They train their thoughts, they guard their heart. They break agreements they made with lies, they choose forgiveness even when bitterness feels more comfortable. They surrender control, they stop rehearsing old pain, they stop dragging the past into the present. They stop blaming everyone else, and they start dealing with the one person they can't escape themselves. It takes courage to face yourself, to admit that maybe you've been running, to look your wounds in the eye and say, "I see you, but you don't define me." To say, "I've been hurt, but I won't hurt others because of it." To confess, "I was broken, but I refuse to let brokenness be my identity." That's the kind of honesty that transforms a life. That's the kind of fight that leads to freedom. Because real power isn't loud. It doesn't always look like confidence. Sometimes it's quiet, consistent healing. Sometimes it's choosing to stay when you feel like fleeing. Sometimes it's waking up and doing the right thing even when the wrong thing feels easier. Sometimes it's going to therapy, going to God, going to the place of pain and saying, "Let's get this right so I don't bleed on people who didn't cut me." The battle within is not a one-time fight, it's daily. It shows up in comparison. It shows up in loneliness. It shows up in the temptation to settle, to sabotage, to shrink. But the 2% are watchful. They don't sleep on their soul. They check in. They realign. They recognize the signs, and when they feel the old habits rising, they don't condemn themselves, they correct themselves. They've learned that healing is not weakness. Vulnerability is not defeat. It's warfare. It's the opposite of what the world tells us. The world says hide it, fix it fast, pretend you're fine. But the ones who last, the ones who walk in truth, they say let's deal with it, let's process this, let's grow here. Because they're not after temporary success, they're after wholeness. The inner battles are what shape a person's character. They make you gentle when you have the right to be harsh. They make you humble when the world tells you to be proud. They make you generous when pain told you to hoard, and they give you eyes to see people, to lead people, to love people, because you've done that work for yourself. You want to know why some people seem untouchable. Not because life didn't touch them, but because they didn't let life take them. They got hit, but they didn't quit. They got betrayed, but they didn't build walls, they built boundaries. They got lied on, stepped over, overlooked, but instead of letting it harden them, they let it teach them. They learned how to bleed without bitterness. They learned how to cry without quitting. They learned how to stand in broken places and still bless others. This is the quiet work that no one sees. This is the grinding in the soul, the renewing of the mind, the surrendering of the ego. This is the kind of strength that is built, not born, and it is why they can walk into places that others can't because they don't carry chaos where they're going. They've already cleaned house. They've already closed the door on shame. They've already won the battle within, and that's why they're different. The world sees the fruit, but they fought for the root. The world hears the words, but they wrestled for the voice. The world celebrates the outcome, but they had to survive the inner outcome of every silent battle before that. So the next time you see someone rising, before you envy their platform, ask about their process. Ask what it took for them to stand. Because chances are, they didn't just fight circumstances, they fought themselves. And they won. That's what sets the 2% apart. It's not the mountain that wears people out. It's the pebble in their shoe. It's not the dream that breaks them, it's the daily grind that they refuse to embrace. Everybody wants the big moment. Everybody wants the spotlight. Everybody wants the crown, but only a few want the cross. Only a few are willing to carry the weight of obedience every single day when there's no one watching, no applause, no reward, no recognition. The ones who rise to uncommon levels, the 2%, the ones who make history and not just headlines, they obey the discipline of daily. You can't microwave greatness. You can't rush maturity. You can't plant a seed and expect a harvest in the same breath. God doesn't work in flashes. He works in layers, in repetition, in rhythm. He moves through the mundane, and he tests through the ordinary. The ones who make it have learned this. Consistency will take you places talent can't. It's not about what you do once, it's about what you do always. It's not about having a big day, it's about how you handle the little ones. The world loves suddenness. It celebrates overnight success. But what they never show is the years it took in silence, the early mornings and late nights, the private sacrifices and quiet decisions. Success is never sudden. It only looks that way to people who weren't watching the daily discipline. The grind that no one writes about, the prayer when no one hears, the commitment when no one cares, the repetition that doesn't feel glamorous. The 2% don't wait to feel inspired. They act out of covenant, not convenience. They show up not because it's exciting, but because it's required. The enemy of your future is not your failure. It's your inconsistency. It's when you let your feelings lead you instead of your discipline. Because feelings are liars, they rise and fall. They lie to you in the morning, tempt you in the evening, and try to talk you out of everything you prayed for at night. But discipline is the decision to obey when your flesh is weak, your mood is off, and your motivation has left the building. The 2% know that destiny does not ask how you feel, it asks if you're faithful. And faithfulness isn't flashy, it's not posted, it's not always fun, but it is fruitful. The discipline of daily looks like getting up and doing it again, praying again, studying again, practicing again. Showing up again, not because you feel like it, but because you said you would. Because obedience doesn't require mood, it requires movement. We have glamorized the mountaintop while ignoring the staircase. But the truth is, the miracle is in the monotony. It's in how you handle the ordinary. How you do what you said you'd do when the fire is gone and the thrill has faded. How you manage your habits when nobody's checking in. Because every small decision is a vote for who you are becoming. You don't drift into destiny. You decide your way into it, one quiet, consistent act at a time. It's not just about waking up early. It's not about doing more. It's about aligning your days with what you say you believe. The 2% build a routine around their revelation. They take what they've seen in the spirit and create systems in the natural to carry it. They don't just dream it, they do it. Every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, obedience in the daily disciplines is where character is carved. It's where habits form and mindsets shift. It's where the flesh dies and the soul learns to rise. The daily is where the real war happens, not on stages, not in competitions, but in the quiet decisions you make when no one's there to clap for you or catch you. You choose between progress and comfort, between discipline and distraction, between what you want now and what you want most. You can't pray your way out of laziness. You can't fast your way out of inconsistency. At some point, you have to make a decision to become the kind of person your future requires. And that means setting your face like flint. That means locking in when your body wants to check out. That means putting your phone down, putting your pride down, putting your procrastination down, and picking up your cross daily. Because that's what Jesus said, daily, not when you're in the mood, not when the crowd is cheering, not when it's trending. He said daily. The 2% understand that fruit doesn't grow in one season. It grows through faithfulness across seasons. You water when it's dry, you prune when it's growing, you wait when it's not moving, you keep showing up in every season, and if you do, eventually you see harvest, not all at once, not in one moment. But harvest always comes to the disciplined. Most people stop because they don't see results fast enough. They think the silence means they're failing, but silence is not absence. Silence is sometimes preparation. Silence is where God tests if you're doing it for Him or for the outcome. Can you obey when there's no blessing attached? Can you still pray when the answer is delayed? Can you still move when the miracle hasn't manifested? The 2% can because they're not led by results. They're led by obedience. There's a difference between motion and momentum. Motion is activity. Momentum is direction. The disciplined life is not just busy, it's focused. It's built around priorities, not pressure. The 2% don't just fill their schedule, they filter their life, they choose what matters, they don't chase everything. They build what they were assigned to build. Slowly, daily, faithfully. There's something holy about staying committed to what you said you'd do when the passion is gone. There's something powerful about keeping your word to yourself. Because every time you follow through, you remind your soul who's in charge. You become trustworthy to your own vision. You stop being a stranger to the version of yourself you dream about, and you start becoming it. You don't need a miracle, you need a pattern, a holy routine, a set of habits that match your calling, because miracles happen when motion meets consistency. God breathes on the thing you refuse to quit. He blesses the hands that didn't stop building. He honors the schedule you submitted to Him. You might think it's just another day, but to God, your daily obedience is setting up divine openings. Greatness does not scream, it whispers, and it whispers in the morning when you don't want to rise. It whispers when your flesh says skip the workout, skip the prayer, skip the work, but the whisper of greatness says no, you're becoming something, stay steady, keep showing up. And that's what the 2% know. That's what the faithful understand. It's not about the big leap, it's about the small step, taken over and over again, not for clout, not for credit, but for the character it creates and the calling it fulfills. Because the greatest reward isn't what you get, it's who you become through the discipline of daily. There is a choice that every human being faces, often in silence, often in pain. It is not a loud choice. It is not a dramatic one, it is quiet, it's internal, it's the choice to be a victim or not. Life will wound you, that's not optional. It will hit you, it will test you. It will let people lie on you, leave you, betray you, overlook you. You will lose some things you didn't think you could live without. You will cry over doors you thought would stay open forever. You will have your heart broken by people you would have given your last breath to. You will have nights when the pain feels louder than your prayers. And in all of that, there is one question hanging in the air. Will you rise or will you sink? See, most people don't know how subtle victimhood can be. It's not just a cry for help. It's not just laying on the ground. Sometimes it's disguised as blaming, as bitterness, as a story you repeat over and over again because it gives you an excuse not to move. It becomes a blanket, comfortable, predictable, familiar, and slowly you stop reaching, you stop building, you stop hoping, because the pain taught you to hide behind what happened rather than stand up and say, I am more than this. But the ones who rise the 2%, they make a different decision. They are not immune to pain, they are not protected from betrayal, they are not favored by the absence of hardship. In fact, they often face more than most. But the difference is this, they refuse to wear the pain as identity. They will not let what was done to them define what comes through them. They do not deny the wounds, but they do deny them the power to control their future. They bury the bitterness before it buries them. You see, victimhood is a prison with no bars. You can live a whole life in it and still look free. You can smile in it, lead in it, even succeed in it, and yet be chained on the inside. Because victimhood isn't about what happened to you. It's about what you let it do to you, and if you're not careful, it becomes a lens you look through, a story you tell yourself every time courage calls you forward. I can't because they didn't. I won't because they left. I tried, but they hurt me. It feels reasonable. It sounds logical, but it's a lie. A beautiful, tragic lie that keeps you bound to what should have only been a chapter, not the whole book. The 2% know how to grieve and go. They mourn what happened, but they do not build monuments to it. They cry, but they cry forward. They shout, but they shout through. And when the dust settles and the pain quiets, they rise. Not because they weren't broken, but because they made a decision not to stay there. There is power in responsibility. It doesn't mean it was your fault. It doesn't mean you asked for it. It means you refuse to give your future over to what you couldn't control. It means you stop asking for someone to come save you and realize that what's in you is enough to survive and thrive. You don't need an apology to start healing. You don't need closure to start building. You don't need the past to agree before you take the next step. You only need to decide that you're not going to let your story end in a sentence someone else wrote. The world will offer you sympathy for staying broken, but heaven will offer you strength to be whole, because you were not created to be a victim. You were created to be victorious. The pain came, yes. But it came to teach, not to trap. It came to shape you, not to shame you. You are not your childhood trauma. You are not the divorce. You are not the mistake. You are not the absence. You are not the rejection. You are not the failure. That is not who you are. That is what you went through. And going through it means you came out on the other side. The 2% understand that ownership is freedom. If you own your pain, you also own your healing. If you own your past, you also own your future. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't sit in self-pity. They get up, sometimes slow, sometimes shaking, sometimes dragging themselves 1 inch at a time. But they move because they know life doesn't owe them recovery. They have to choose it. Some people carry what happened to them like a weapon. They wound others from their wounds, but the 2% carry it like a testimony. They use their scars to point the way for someone else. They don't hide their journey. They honor it. They don't pretend it didn't happen. They just proclaim that it didn't kill them. It shaped them, yes. But it did not steal their identity. They were hurt, but not halted. Bruised, but not buried. Bent, but not broken. To be free is not to forget. It's to forgive. And forgiveness is not a favor you give to the one who hurt you. It's a door you open for yourself to walk out of the cell. The 2% walk light because they've learned how to put things down, not because they weren't heavy, but because they knew the weight would ruin the mission. They let it go so they could go further. When you refuse to be a victim, you start to see life differently. You stop waiting to be chosen, you choose yourself. You stop waiting for permission, you take authority. You stop playing small to earn sympathy, and you step fully into the power God placed inside you. You walk into rooms knowing you belong, not because someone told you, but because God called you. You face resistance not with resentment, but with resilience. You expect rejection, but you don't internalize it, because you've already done the inner work. You've already had the conversation with yourself. You've already stood in the mirror and said, I don't need them to believe in me. I believe in what's in me. You can't move in power and live in pity at the same time. You have to choose. You can either keep rehearsing the reasons why it didn't work, or you can get up and work it anyway. The 2% choose to work. To grow, to forgive, to stretch, to lead, to move forward even when it hurts, because forward is the only direction they're committed to. You weren't made to stay broken. You were made to rise, not to deny what happened, but to declare that it doesn't have dominion anymore. You don't have to keep dragging it. You don't have to keep explaining it. You don't have to keep shrinking because of it. The future is wide open, but it requires something radical. It requires that you decide today that you will not let what happened to you rob you of what's still available to you. The ones who rise the 2%, they made a choice, and it wasn't easy, but it was everything. They refused to be victims, and because of that, they became victors. Let me know if you'd like to continue building this into a series or speech compilation. I'm happy to support. Time is not just passing. Time is speaking. It's whispering to you in every tick of the clock, in every sunrise that greets you, in every sunset that reminds you that the day is gone and it will not be coming back. Time is not just a measurement, it's a miracle. And yet, most people treat it like it's cheap. They spend it like they'll get a refund. They waste it like it's renewable. But the 2%, those rare, uncommon ones, they understand that time is sacred. You can recover money. You can rebuild trust. You can regain health. But time, once it leaves, it never knocks again. It doesn't rewind. It doesn't revisit. It doesn't wait until you feel ready. It moves constantly, silently. Irreversibly, the 2% have learned how to see the invisible. They see the weight of time. They honor it. They don't just mark days on a calendar. They fill them with purpose. They don't ask, what should I do today? They ask, what was I sent to do today? Because every moment carries a mandate. Every breath carries a responsibility. There's a reason you're alive today and not yesterday or tomorrow. You were placed in this moment for something eternal. But if you're not careful, distractions will steal it from you. If you're not alert, noise will drown out your assignment. The world has a way of keeping you busy but empty, moving but not meaningful, scrolling through life but never actually showing up for it. That's why most people lose. Not because they're not gifted, not because they're not called, but because they don't steward time. They live like there's always later, later to start, later to forgive, later to write the book, later to make the call. Later to get serious, but later is a seductive lie. Later is the lullaby that keeps dreams asleep. Later is how you miss the door God opened. Later is how you waste a lifetime and then look up wondering where it went. But the 2%, they live with urgency, not fear, not haste, but holy urgency. They wake up knowing that every second is holy ground. They don't procrastinate purpose. They don't flirt with distractions. They don't bow to delay. They move deliberately, intentionally, sacrificially. They structure their days around their destiny. They are not casual with the clock. They know that what they build today is what they will walk in tomorrow. Because the truth is, how you treat time reveals how much you believe in your calling. If you really believed you were sent to change something, heal something, build something, lead something, how would you move? Would you still waste hours in bitterness? Would you still spend days in confusion you haven't even prayed about? Would you still let other people's drama steal your attention and your energy, or would you lock in? Would you clear the clutter? Would you prioritize your peace? The 2% answer yes to all of that. Not because it's easy, but because it's essential. Time is a test. It doesn't just tell it tests. It shows what you love, what you value, what you really believe. You don't need to tell people your priorities. They can look at your calendar. They can see where your hours go. They can see what you cancel things for. The 2% don't fill their days with what's urgent. They fill it with what's important. They've learned that the good is the enemy of the great. That busy is not the same as effective. That movement doesn't mean momentum. So they cut what doesn't contribute. They eliminate what doesn't elevate. They say no, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. Because when you understand time is sacred, you also understand you can't spend it with everyone. Some people are on your clock, but not on your calling. Some places can entertain you, but they can't grow you. Some habits feel good, but they waste your strength, and you don't have the time to stay stuck. Not when the assignment is calling, not when heaven is watching. Not when lives are waiting for what you carry. The 2% live differently. They plan not just for the next week, but for legacy. They don't just think about income. They think about impact. They measure their days in faithfulness, not followers. They know that every decision is a seed and every seed shapes a future, so they choose carefully, speak slowly, move purposefully, and most of all, they guard their time, because once you understand how sacred time is, you stop offering it to things that cannot reciprocate. You stop showing up for gossip. You stop chasing validation. You stop performing for people who wouldn't pray for you. You realize that you don't have the bandwidth to live beneath your purpose, that every hour you spend off mission is an hour you'll never get back. And yet this awareness doesn't make them anxious. It makes them powerful. It gives them peace. It gives them clarity, because when you live like time is sacred, you don't chase everything. You're not desperate. You don't need every opportunity. You just need the right one. You don't need every open door. You need the one that aligns with your assignment, and if it doesn't fit your purpose, it's not worth your time. The sacredness of time also teaches the 2% to be present, because being present is the only way to fully possess a moment. You can't harvest from a field you won't stand in. You can't hear the whisper of destiny while scrolling through distraction. You have to be here, not in yesterday's guilt, not in tomorrow's worry, but here, fully, prayerfully, with eyes open and ears tuned. And when you live like that, when you truly understand that time is sacred, God begins to do something strange and supernatural. He begins to stretch it. He begins to multiply what others waste. You'll get done in 1 year what others try to do in 10. You'll see acceleration where others see delay, because God honors stewardship. He honors discipline. He honors those who honor time. That's the difference. That's the uncommon factor. It's not genius. It's not luck. It's not even connections. It's awareness. It's reverence. It's knowing that time is the currency of eternity. You're not just spending minutes. You're spending your life, and how you spend it will speak for you long after you're gone. So if you woke up today, it means there's still something left in you to pour. There's still time to obey. still time to forgive, still time to build, still time to become. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for motivation. Just start. Just move. Just show up. Because the clock is ticking. And it's not counting down your death. It's counting down your impact. Don't waste another second wondering if it matters. It does. You do. The 2% already know. So let me leave you with this. The difference between average and extraordinary is not always talent. It's not always intelligence. It's not even always opportunity. Sometimes it's simply attention, attention to time, attention to what matters, attention to what you're letting slip through your fingers while you're waiting for a sign, a confirmation, a perfect moment that may never come. The 2% don't wait to be told it's time. They know it's time because every moment is borrowed, every breath is a gift, and every heartbeat is another chance to make it count. If time is sacred, then wasting it is sacrilege. Living passively is dishonor. Allowing fear to stall you is not just a delay, it's a denial of what God placed inside you. You weren't born to circle the same wilderness for 40 years when the promised land is only an act of obedience away. You weren't created to wake up, exist, and repeat. You were created to walk with purpose, speak with clarity, and live with urgency, but urgency doesn't mean rushing, it means reverence. It means waking up in the morning with a fire in your bones and a question in your spirit. God, what do you want from me today? Because when you understand time is sacred, you understand that now matters. You stop putting greatness on layaway, you stop saying one day, and you start saying day one. You stop looking at your watch to see what time it is and start asking, what is this time for? Because time isn't just about you. It's about what you're called to deliver into the earth while you still have the strength to do it. Some of you have been sitting on ideas too long. You've been silencing songs that were meant to be sung, holding back businesses that were meant to be born, postponing healing that was meant to be pursued, and avoiding conversations that were meant to set you free. But no more, not after this, because something in you is waking up. Something in you is stirring, not just inspiration, but accountability, not just motivation, but movement. You don't have to run faster. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to start. Start valuing what's been freely given to you. Start recognizing the miracle of a day. Start noticing that every time your eyes open in the morning, heaven is saying, I'm not done with you yet. And if God's not done, then you don't get to be done. You don't get to quit. You don't get to hide. You don't get to drift through life and call it faith. Faith moves, faith acts, faith honors time. So from this day forward, make it sacred. Make your minutes matter. Be intentional. Be present. Be bold. Say yes to what aligns and no to what distracts. Break the habits that steal your hours and start building the life that matches your calling. Because time is not just ticking, it's telling you that the hour is now, the doors are open, the future is waiting, and your next chapter doesn't begin someday. It begins today. Let me break this thing down for you. So I ask you, what percentage are you? Because God didn't make you for the 98%. You weren't designed to blend in, you were destined to stand out. You better rise up. Shake the dust off. Cancel the pity party. The 2% is not a number, it's a mindset. Now go live like you believe it.